I buried my father at 10 a.m. At 4:15, I opened his safety deposit box and found a second will, one that erased me completely. Everything went to Elise. 3 years of caregiving, gone with one signature. And the worst part? She knew. My name's Ben. I'm the oldest. The quiet one. The one who moved back home when Dad got sick. Elise is the youngest. 6 years my junior. The golden child, not loud about it, just understood. I was the one who stayed. She was the one who inherited everything. When Dad got sick, it wasn't even a conversation. Elise lived 2 states away, and Mom had been gone for 5 years. So I moved in, packed up my 1-bedroom apartment, and became a full-time caregiver. He had stage 4 COPD, then heart failure. Then, eventually, time just ran out. The last 6 months were brutal. His lungs were so weak, he couldn't make it up the stairs. We converted the dining room into a bedroom. I fed him through a straw some days. Cleaned him when the dignity was gone. We didn't talk much, not like we used to. But sometimes, when the TV was off and the lights were low, he'd squeeze my hand. Like that was the only language he still had. Elise visited maybe 3 times that last year. Flew in for a weekend, brought flowers, cried a little, and flew back out. Said the hospital smells made her nauseous. Said she just couldn't see him like that. I said nothing, because I wasn't in the business of collecting guilt. But I guess I was wrong about that. Because when I held that second will in my hands, signed 3 months before he died, I realized someone had been keeping secrets. And those secrets had names, and signatures, and legal weight. Elise didn't mention a thing at the funeral. Stood next to me at the casket with her mascara running and her hand gripping mine like we were still kids hiding from a thunderstorm. Said she was proud of me for being so strong. That Dad would have been lost without me. And all the while, she knew. She knew about the will. I saw it in her face when I brought it up later that night. We were sitting on the back porch, wrapped in old quilts, bourbon in our mugs. I said it soft, didn't want to accuse her, just wanted the truth. I found something, I said, in the safety box. Her whole body stilled. What did you find? She asked. But she didn't look at me. She looked past me, into the dark. I told her, described the paper, the stamp, the clause that left everything to her, the house, the land, even the antique shop our grandparents built from scratch. And all she said was, I didn't think you'd find it. That's when I realized. It wasn't just Dad who made that decision. It was them. Together. And maybe, just maybe she'd asked him to. I didn't say anything for a long time after she said that. I didn't think you'd find it. What do you even do with words like that? I sat there with my bourbon, letting it warm the back of my throat, watching the wind bend the branches of the old oak like they were trying to bow under the weight of something unspeakable. My mind went blank in that stunned, mechanical way it does when your world tilts, and you know it's not going to straighten out again. She didn't apologize. Not really. She just stared into the dark, like she was waiting for me to say something that would let her off the hook. So I asked when. She answered fast. Too fast. Around the time hospice started. He said he didn't want you to feel like you had to take care of him for something in return. That it should come from love, not expectation. I nearly laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of the way pain sometimes forces its way out like steam from a cracked pipe. That's rich, I muttered. So he thanked me by erasing me. Elise winced, but didn't try to argue. She just said, it wasn't about punishment. But see, that's where she was wrong. Because that's exactly what it felt like. Like I was being punished for showing up. For being the son who stayed. The one who scrubbed the floors after accidents. Who held Dad's hand while they adjusted his morphine drip. The one who didn't fly home and cry pretty tears, but bled, silently, for 3 years straight. And it wasn't about the money. It was about what the will meant. That signature told a story. A final story. The story of who mattered when it all ended. And I wasn't in it. Why didn't you tell me? I asked her. My voice cracked halfway through. I didn't even care. Elise shrugged like that was supposed to soften the blow. I didn't know how. That part, I believed. Elise never did well with confrontation. When we were kids, she'd break something, a lamp, a rule, a heart, and then vanish before anyone could make her clean up the pieces. She always had an exit strategy. I was the one who stayed behind, picking up the glass. I looked at her and realized she was crying. Real tears this time. Not the kind you put on for church or funerals. The kind that sneak up on you when the lie you built finally crumbles. I didn't ask him to do it for me, she said. Not at first. That part stuck. Not at first. I repeated. She nodded, almost ashamed. I told him I didn't want to fight with you over the house after he was gone. That I'd always dreamed of coming back here someday, raising a family on the land, keeping the shop running. And he rewrote his will for that? He said I was his legacy. I swallowed that sentence like it was broken glass. His legacy. Not me. Not the one who stayed when it was hard. Who gave up relationships, job offers, a life for him. You know what the worst part is? I said. I still would have taken care of him. Even if he told me. Even if he said, Ben, this all goes to Elise, but I need you right now. I would have done it anyway. She looked at me like that truth cut deeper than anything else I'd said. Because it did. That's the difference between us. I don't love with terms. I don't keep ledgers. I show up, even when no one's watching. Even when it costs me. And apparently, that's why I was written out. I stood up. The porch creaked beneath me like it had something to say too. I'm not contesting it, I told her. I won't drag this through court. But don't pretend this was fair. And don't ever tell me Dad appreciated me. That's not what appreciation looks like. She tried to speak, maybe to say thank you, maybe to beg for something softer. But I didn't stay long enough to hear it. Because when someone rewrites the ending of your story without telling you, you don't keep reading. You start writing your own. The morning after that conversation, I woke up on the pull-out couch in Dad's den with the weight of the world pressing down on my chest, and not just because that damn mattress had springs like bear traps. I'd slept beside the same bookshelf where he used to store his westerns. Louis L'Amour, Zane Grey, even a few Dusty Clive Cusslers he never finished. The scent of the room hadn't changed, tobacco, old wood, the faint must of memory. I used to think that smell meant home. Now it just smelled like a place I wasn't welcome anymore. Elise had made coffee. I could smell it drifting in from the kitchen. I didn't go in. I couldn't stomach the idea of sharing a mug and pretending we were still on the same side of the river. Instead, I walked outside, across the yard, and sat on the front porch steps, the same steps where I'd watched summer storms roll in as a boy. The same ones where Dad once taught me how to tie a fishing lure. The steps where, after Mom died, we'd sit in silence, him nursing a beer, me holding a grief I didn't know what to do with. I knew every crack in that porch, every loose nail, every sun-bleached spot. This was supposed to be mine, not out of greed, but out of continuity. Because I was the one who kept the light on. I was the one who learned the rhythms of that house, the way the pipes moaned in winter, and the trick to getting the back door to latch just right. Elise? She remembered it like a snapshot. I remembered it like a symphony. When she stepped out, holding 2 mugs, I didn't take one. I just nodded toward the field. Deer came through last night, I said. She followed my gaze. They always did love the apple trees. I let the silence stretch until it almost felt like peace. Then I said, what are you going to do with it? She didn't pretend not to know what I meant. I haven't decided, she said, but I want to keep it. I nodded. Even the shop? She hesitated. I was thinking I'd rent it out. Maybe to someone who wants to turn it into a boutique or a cafe. Something modern. That was the moment I felt the split, not just between us, but between what this place had been and what it was about to become. Dad didn't leave it to someone who loved it. He left it to someone who remembered liking it. I stood up. I'll be out by the weekend. She looked at me like I'd just cracked the floor under her feet. Ben, you don't have to. I do. I cut in. Because you're the heir. That's what the paper says. And I don't want to be the ghost haunting the corners of a place that no longer remembers me. Her mouth opened. Closed. She looked like she might cry again, but I was done collecting those. I walked back inside, past the family photos still lining the hallway. Me and Elise in Halloween costumes. Mom and Dad at the lake. All those moments framed like they still meant something. I paused at one of me and Dad. I was maybe 9, holding a fishing rod too big for me. He had one hand on my shoulder, the other shielding his eyes from the sun. I took it off the wall. The sound of the hook coming loose echoed like thunder. Back in the den, I started packing. Not angrily. Not even hurried. Just steady. Like closing up a shop at the end of the season. That afternoon, I called Mr. Denning, Dad's lawyer. Asked for a copy of the first will. The one I'd remembered, the one that split everything evenly. He emailed it over within the hour. Dated 2 years earlier. Equal shares. Clear as day. No mention of sole heirs. Just 2 kids, 1 home, 1 legacy. And that's when it hit me. Dad changed it after hospice started. After his mind started slipping. After Elise's visits got fewer and mine became his reality. I remember thinking, was he even of sound mind when he signed it? But Denning had signed off. Said he'd spoken to Dad directly, that he'd been clear, composed, even if frail. Said it was all legal, tight as a drum. So why would he do that? Unless someone asked him to. Not out of malice. Not even out of manipulation. But out of fear. Of dying without control. Of leaving behind a mess. And maybe Elise offered a clean answer. A neat solution. A version of legacy that sounded good on paper. But the truth? Legacy isn't what you leave in a document. It's what you leave in the hands of the people who stayed. By Thursday, most of my things were boxed up. Not that I owned much, most of it was still Dad's, or Mom's before that. The couch was hers, faded floral with the tear under the armrest. The bookshelf? Dad built that when I was 15, cursing the whole time because I forgot to hold the frame steady while he drilled. I didn't pack that bookshelf. Couldn't. That would have soaked up too many stories to move again. Elise came by that afternoon. Said she wanted to help. I told her no. She hovered anyway, standing by the threshold like a child waiting for permission to come in. You remember when we used to race down the stairs with pillowcases on our heads? She asked, forcing a laugh. I nodded. You fell into the radiator and got stitches. Dad carried me into the ER. Yeah, I said, taping a box closed. I was the one who wrapped your head in a dish towel while he got the car. She quieted. It always went like that. She remembered the flash. I remembered the cleanup. Later, she brought up the shop again. Said maybe she'd keep it in the family. Hire someone local. Let them keep the antiques but modernize the brand. I didn't say what I was thinking, that antiques don't need brands. They need reverence. Memory. Hands that understand dust isn't dirt. It's time. I was halfway through sorting Dad's paperwork when I found the folder. Not the will. I'd already put that in the fire-safe box with my dignity. This was something else. Manila. Worn at the edges. Labeled in his shaky handwriting. Ben. Thank you. Inside were receipts. Pages and pages of them. From the pharmacy. From the grocery store. From the hospital parking garage. Dated over 3 years. My name on every single one. Behind them was a letter. Not notarized. Not legal. Just written on yellow notepad paper, folded once. Ben, it read. I know I didn't say enough. I know this isn't the same as leaving you the house. I wish I could explain why I did what I did. Truth is, I got scared. The doctors said my memory was slipping little things at first, but I noticed. And I panicked. Thought if I left things even, you might feel like this was all a trade. I didn't want you to think I was buying your love, or that I expected it. You gave it freely. That matters. And maybe Elise, maybe she needed this more than you did. I know that sounds unfair. But you've always found a way through. You never asked for anything. And I think, deep down, I was afraid of losing both of you in the end. Afraid that if I didn't make things simple, you'd end up tearing each other apart after I was gone. I'm sorry if that made me forget to give you what you deserved. No signature. Just those last 2 words. I'm sorry. I read it 3 times. And then I sat back in Dad's chair, the one that had molded to his shape, and now to mine, and I let the letter sit in my lap while my heart did whatever hearts do when they're tired of carrying unspoken debts. He knew. He knew what he did. He just didn't know how to fix it. And maybe he thought that letter was enough. Maybe he thought it would find me in a quiet moment and offer the kind of apology he could never say out loud. But the truth is, love doesn't always translate to justice. And intentions, even the good ones, can still cut deep. I thought about calling Denning, asking what it would take to challenge the will. But then I pictured the courtroom, the affidavits, the cross-examinations, the way they'd pull apart the last 3 years of my life like evidence in a case I never wanted to fight. And I realized, I don't want a judge to decide what my time was worth. I already know. Some debts aren't meant to be collected. Some things you walk away from not because you're weak, but because carrying them any further would make you someone you're not. That night, I made a copy of the letter. Put the original back in the folder. What's this? She asked. He left it for me, I said. Thought you should read it. She opened it. Read. Went still. When she looked up, her eyes were shining. He was scared, she said. Yeah, I said. So was I. She set the folder down like it was glass. I didn't know he wrote you anything. I mean, I knew about the will, but not this. He didn't tell you? She shook her head. And maybe that was the moment something cracked, not like a plate dropped on tile, but like a window easing open in spring. A small shift. Enough to let in air. Ben, she said, soft, I know it's not the same, but I'd like to. I mean, if I figure this out, the shop, the house, I want you to be part of it. I looked at her then. Really looked. Not as my sister. Not as the one who got everything. But as someone who was grieving too, just differently. I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no. Because maybe part of being written out is learning to write your own chapter anyway. Friday came, and with it, a sunrise that stretched long shadows across the fields, the kind of light that made everything look older, like it was trying to remind you of all the years that had passed without asking your permission. I loaded the last of my boxes into the back of my truck, careful not to slam anything. Not out of fear of breaking something, but out of reverence. Like I owed the silence one last courtesy. The photo of me and Dad from the fishing trip rode up front with me. I'd put it in the glove box, not to hide it, but to keep it close. Funny how a picture can feel heavier than any box. Elise stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself like she didn't quite know how to hold the weight of goodbye. I didn't hug her. We weren't there yet. But I did nod. And that was something. I'll call, she said. Okay. If I start messing it all up, the shop, the house, you'll tell me? I gave her a half smile. You'll know before I say it. And then I drove. Not far. Just out to the edge of town where the rental was a one-story with flaking shutters and a crooked mailbox. But it had a porch and a yard and a view of the hills. It was enough. Sometimes, enough is what gets you through. The first night there, I didn't unpack. I sat on the floor with a blanket and that one photo, and I stared at the ceiling like I was waiting for something, a sign, a memory, a voice from somewhere past reason. But all I got was the hum of the fridge and the soft thump of my own heart reminding me I was still here. The next morning, I went by the shop. The antique store hadn't changed much. Same bell over the door, same smell of dust and lemon polish. Elise was inside, cataloging a box of old postcards, like she was trying to read the past one sentence at a time. She looked up when I came in. Didn't smile, but her eyes lit, just barely. I figured I'd stop in, I said. See what's still standing. She nodded. Most of it. Some of it's wobbly. Aren't we all? I walked to the back room, where Dad used to keep the items that were too damaged to sell, but too loved to throw away. A cracked mirror. A chipped clock. A stack of journals with water-warped pages. That's where I found the ledger. Old, leather-bound. His handwriting, neat and spidery. It was a record, not of sales, but of repairs. Every item he'd ever fixed for someone. Lamps rewired. Hinges oiled. Tables reglued. Each line dated, annotated with care. And at the very end, a single entry underlined twice. Bin, kitchen chair. Reinforced base. Still squeaks, but he said it gives it character. I stared at it for a long time. The ledger didn't change anything legal. It didn't give me back the house or the land or the name on the dotted line. But it gave me something else. Proof. Proof that I was seen. That I hadn't been invisible in those final years. That in some quiet, stubborn corner of my father's heart, I'd left a mark. That weekend, Elise asked if I'd consider coming in a few days a week to help restore some of the older items. Just for now, she said. Until I get my footing. I said I'd think about it. But on Monday, I showed up with a toolbox and 2 coffees. We didn't talk much that day. She worked the register. I worked in the back. But when I found the old rocking chair Mom used to nap in, the one that had gone missing after she passed, I brought it to the front. Elise saw it and smiled. The real kind. We didn't say anything. Just let the chair creak gently in the corner while the shop buzzed around it. Because sometimes healing doesn't come in words. It comes in shared silence. In doing the work. In staying, even after you've been asked, legally, to leave. It's been 4 months since I moved out of the house I once thought would be mine forever. Seasons have started to shift again. The leaves in the backyard at my rental crunch underfoot like they're breaking gently, not with violence, but with purpose. Letting go. Making room. That's what grief is, I think. Not something you conquer, not something you cure. Just something you learn to carry more quietly. Elise is taken to running the shop full-time. She repainted the sign, polished the windows, added a little local finds section near the register. But she never changed the name. Rose and Timber. Our grandparents' names. Our family's spine. She even kept Dad's ledger on the counter. Open to the last page. The line with my name is still there. She added a note beneath it in her handwriting, small and square. Chair still squeaks. But it holds. Some days, I work in the back room, hands full of varnish and sandpaper. Other days, I just stop in for coffee and conversation. It's not about the hours. It's about the anchor. The ritual. The shared understanding that not all repairs are visible. Last week, she handed me an envelope. Said it was from her lawyer. Inside was a simple contract. She was adding me as co-owner of the shop. No gimmicks. No ceremony. Just this, because legacy shouldn't come with conditions. I didn't sign it right away. Not because I didn't want it, but because I needed to know it wasn't guilt that drove her. So I asked her plainly, without anger, "Are you doing this because you feel bad?" She shook her head. "No. I'm doing this because I finally see what you were holding together all those years. And because I want to hold it with you now." So I signed. I framed that page of the ledger and hung it above my workbench, right next to the photo of Dad and me fishing, both of us smiling into the sun like we didn't know yet how complicated love could get. That's the thing no one tells you about inheritance. It's not just money or land or names on deeds. It's what stays with you when the paper's gone. It's the smell of your father's cologne in a flannel shirt. The way your sister calls you first when something breaks. The sound of a chair that still squeaks. It's the quiet moments, after everything is burned down, where someone reaches across the ashes and says, "I'm still here." I never contested the will. Never went to court. Because what I've come to understand is this. Being chosen legally isn't the same as being loved well. And though my name wasn't written into that final page of Dad's estate, I was there in the margins. In every pill counted. In every night spent holding his hand when the fear was stronger than the morphine. In every breath that kept him company. That was my inheritance. And in some ways, the one that mattered more. So now I live in a house that isn't mine, with a life that feels a little borrowed, but real. Held. Forged from silence and stitches and the long, slow grace of forgiveness. Elise and I still fight sometimes. Still fall back into our patterns. But we show up. We build. We stay. And the chair? It still squeaks. But it holds.